This woman seized a throne that was never hers, and to keep it, she eliminated every heir to the promise God made to David, every prince, every grandson, every boy with royal heritage, gone before sunrise. She didn't just want the crown, she wanted to erase a family tree that God himself had planted. This is the story of Athaliah, the queen nobody talks about, the coup nobody expected, and the baby who almost didn't survive. It spans palace corridors, temple back rooms, and 6 years of silence, and it almost rewrote the entire future of Scripture. Because if Athaliah had succeeded fully, there would be no lineage, no Bethlehem, no manger, no promise kept, just a woman on a throne and an empty family tree. But to understand why Athaliah did what she did, you need to understand where she came from. And this part changes everything. Athaliah wasn't from Judah, that is, the southern kingdom. She was the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel. Yes, you heard it, the Jezebel. The royal power couple that ruled the northern kingdom. 2 Kings 8:26 says she was the granddaughter of Omri, Ahab's father. And if you know anything about Jezebel, you know this wasn't a household that produced gentle diplomats. Ahab and Jezebel ran Israel like a crime syndicate, Baal worship everywhere. Prophets of the true God hunted down and silenced permanently. It was sad. 1 Kings 18 verse 4. Athaliah was sent south, married into Judah's royal family as a political alliance. Think of it as a merger, 2 kingdoms, 1 agenda. She married Jehoram, king of Judah. And just like her mother had done in the north, Athaliah immediately started reshaping Judah's identity. 2 Chronicles 21 verse 6. Baal altars went up in Jerusalem, mocking the very skyline of the holy city. The Lord's temple, neglected. And the spiritual rot that had consumed the north was now spreading south like a plague. And this is why what happened next hit so hard. Because Athaliah wasn't just seizing political power, she was importing foreign gods into the city where God had placed his name. So now, back to our queen. Athaliah's son Ahaziah had become king of Judah. He was young, impressionable, and his mother was his closest advisor. 2 Chronicles 22 verse 3 says she encouraged him to do wrong. But then Ahaziah made a decision that would cost him everything. He went north to visit his uncle Joram, king of Israel, at the worst possible time. Because at that exact moment, a man named Jehu was on a mission from God, a very specific mission. 2 Kings chapter 9 verse 7. Jehu wasn't anointed to reform the house of Ahab, wasn't there to negotiate or sign a treaty. He was there to liquidate it, end it. And Ahaziah, the king of Judah, Athaliah's son, just happened to be standing right next to the target. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong family tree. Ahaziah didn't make it. His story ended at Megiddo. He was gone, and the news traveled south to Jerusalem faster than a wildfire. Now think about what Athaliah just lost. Her husband was already gone years earlier. Now her son, the king, was gone too. Most people in her position would grieve, but for her, she calculated. She didn't have time for tears. She had a throne to polish. Why waste time being a grieving mother when you can be a sole proprietor? She looked at the empty throne and asked herself one question. Who stands between me and permanent power? The answer? Her own grandchildren. And so Athaliah gave an order that would echo through history. She ordered the elimination of the entire royal seed. Every heir, every prince, every boy with a claim to the throne. It wasn't a funeral, it was a purge. And when the sun rose the next morning, she sat on the throne of David. The queen mother had become the queen, and the royal nursery, empty and silent. Now here's where it gets wild. Because while Athaliah was consolidating power, someone inside the palace was running. There was an inside man, or rather, an inside woman. Jehosheba. Jehosheba was Ahaziah's sister, which made her Athaliah's own stepdaughter. And she, get this, she was married to Jehoiada, the high priest. So while Athaliah was playing queen, Jehosheba was playing special ops. Jehosheba grabbed one baby from the nursery, the infant Joash, along with his nurse, and disappeared into the one place Athaliah would never think to look. The temple, the house of God. 2 Kings 11 verse 2. She hid him in a bedroom inside the temple for 6 years. 6 years. Think about what that means. A child growing up inside a temple. His playground was the house of God. His teacher was the high priest. His entire world was 4 stone walls and a secret that could get him eliminated. Meanwhile, directly above them, Athaliah ruled Judah, worshipped Baal openly, stripped the temple of its treasures for her pagan shrines. 2 Chronicles 24:7. She was sitting on a stolen throne, completely oblivious to the fact that directly beneath her feet, the future king was learning the very scriptures she was trying to bury. Okay, but pause. Because there's a side character in the story that nobody ever talks about. Jehoiada the priest. This man kept a secret for 6 years inside his own workplace. Every day he walked past Athaliah's soldiers. Every day he performed temple duties while hiding the rightful king in a back room. For 2,190 days. That's not just faith. That's the kind of faith that wakes up every single morning and chooses to risk everything again and again. And that's exactly what makes the next part so intense. Because in the 7th year, Jehoiada decided the secret was over. He didn't just reveal the boy, he orchestrated a full regime change from inside a temple. As a priest, he summoned the captains of the guard, the Karaites, and the royal bodyguards and brought them into the temple. Then he showed them the boy. Imagine that room. Soldiers had served Athaliah for 6 years believing there were no heirs left, and now a priest is showing them a living prince. Jehoiada first made them swear an oath, then he laid out the plan, and it was meticulous. 2 Chronicles 23, verses 1 through 7. Now most people stop the story here, but there's a layer underneath that nobody catches, and it reaches all the way back to 2 Samuel 7. You see, God had made a covenant with David, not a suggestion, a covenant. Verse 12, your throne will be established forever. That covenant was the seed line, the unbroken chain from David to the promised Messiah. Every generation, someone from David's line had to survive, had to. And here was Athaliah, one generation away from snapping that chain forever. She didn't know it. She couldn't have known the full scope. But something was using her to try. This wasn't just a political power grab. This was a spiritual war being fought through a palace coup. The enemy wanted that lineage gone. And the only thing standing between a cosmic promise and a total erasure was one baby in a back room, a priest with steady hands, and a woman brave enough to run. So with all of that in mind, let's go back to the 7th year. The plan was set. Jehoiada had divided the Levites and guards into 3 groups, 1/3 at the palace gate, 1/3 at the foundation gate, and the final 1/3 at the gate behind the guards. Every entrance covered. Then Jehoiada brought out the weapons. Not just any weapons. These were the spears and shields that had belonged to King David himself, stored in the temple for generations. 2 Kings 11, verse 10. David's weapons being used to restore David's throne. That's a detail so perfect it could only have been planned by someone who sees the end from the beginning. Then they brought out the boy, 7 years old, standing in the temple courtyard surrounded by armed men who hadn't smiled in 6 years and were now trying not to weep. Jehoiada placed the crown on the boy's head, put a copy of the covenant in his hands. Then he anointed him. The people clapped their hands, shouting, "Long live the king! The king! Long live the king!" Now guess who heard the noise? Athaliah. She heard the shouting and the trumpets from inside the palace. You'd think she ran, but nope. She walked to the temple. And when she arrived, looked up, and saw the boy standing by the pillar with a crown on his head and the people celebrating around him, she tore her robes and screamed 2 words. Treason! Treason! The irony of that word coming from her, a woman who had seized the throne by eliminating its rightful owners, is almost too much to process. Jehoiada gave one final order, take her out, but not in the temple. The house of God would not be stained by this. They seized her, brought her to the horse gate of the palace, and there, her story ended. 2 Kings chapter 11, verse 16. The woman who tried to end the line of David was herself the last of the line of Ahab. Her story closed at a horse gate, not on a throne. Quick detour, because this detail is too good to skip. What happened next tells you everything about who Jehoiada really was. He didn't take the throne for himself. He didn't install a military government. He made a covenant between God, the king, and the people. Then the people went to the temple of Baal, tore it down, smashed the altars, smashed the images, and removed Baal's priest. All the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet. The city was quiet. 4 words that carry 6 years of terror, 1 night of courage, and a morning of restoration. So here's what most people miss about this story. It's not just a dramatic rescue, not just a political coup in reverse. This is the story of how God's oldest promise nearly met its end, centuries before it was supposed to be fulfilled, and it survived by the thinnest possible thread. One woman running through a dark corridor with a baby. One priest who kept a secret for 6 years. One boy who grew up between stone walls and then walked out to wear a crown. Athaliah thought she was writing history, but she was actually fulfilling a pattern. Every attempt to destroy this line, from Pharaoh to Herod, met the same ending: failure. Every single time. Joash went on to reign for 40 years, repaired the temple, and restored proper worship. The boy who grew up in the house of God spent his reign rebuilding it, and the line continued. Through Joash to Amaziah, through Amaziah to Uzziah. Generation after generation, all the way to a carpenter's workshop in Nazareth. Matthew chapter 1, verse 1. Was it faith that saved the line? Was it courage? Was it just two people in the right place with just enough nerve to act? Maybe. But one thing is certain. You don't preserve a 2,000-year-old covenant by accident. Athaliah wanted to end a dynasty. Instead, she became a footnote in the very story she tried to erase. The line held. The promise was kept.